Here we go. Hello, race fans and hot rodders. This is the Big Comedy Podcast, and I got a big shot here. I got a guy who started comedy, well, it's Comedy Central, Comedy Channel, and started the comedy scene at HBO, Mr. Art Bell. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How you doing?
Great. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yeah. You know, we got a mutual friend. I got to start out with this. I love Dave Colin.
Dave is a great guy.
He's a mad and a sweetheart.
I don't know how long you've known him. I've known him for gotta be 25 years. Gotta be 25 years, maybe even longer. We met at Comedy Central, actually.
Okay.
He came in to pitch some idea. Of course, we rejected it.
Yeah.
But then we got to talking, and he turns out he was, a really funny guy, and we did some work together on our website and ended up writing a book together.
Right. What was the name of that book?
That was called Web Sightings, Websites We'd Like to See.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, it was just at the beginning of the whole internet thing, and we thought it was funny.
He gave me like some of my first little jobs when I moved to New York, and
Really?
I was so grateful to him. He saw me in a club, and I don't know what he saw, but I was glad for the work, believe me,
He talks about you all the time.
Yeah, he's a good man. He's a good man.
Yeah.
So my first experience, like Comedy Central wise, was I won an award. This predates Comedy Central, so I don't know if this connects with you, but I won a contest for a channel called the Ha Network.
Yeah.
And there used to be the Ha Network and your channel was the Comedy Channel?
Right.
If I have that right. And then they both merged, or you bought out the Ha Network. I'm not sure which.
No, actually, I'll tell you the story from the beginning.
Okay.
We started the Comedy Channel, and the day after we announced in a big press conference, MTV Networks announced their Comedy Channel, which, as it turns out, they didn't really have much going on a comedy channel. But they didn't like the fact that we suddenly got ahead of them.
Right.
So they said, oh, maybe we better do one too. So they announced Ha. So we launched probably 6 months ahead of them.
Wow.
And then probably 6 months later, we merged. We were on the air for a year. They were on the air for half a year. Neither of us was doing spectacularly, although I thought we were doing great.
Yeah, you were dividing the market.
We were dividing the distribution market, the advertising sales market, and it became clear to everybody in the business that two comedy networks was not going to sustain,
Right.
So,
yeah, but I remember that because predating what you guys, this is like, it seems like almost a gold rush of cable TV, because I grew up loving Johnny Carson, and then later David Letterman was on after him. And it was like, if you wanted to make it comedy, you had to get on Johnny Carson. And the idea of a 24-hour comedy channel was not something everybody was thinking about.
Not only were they not thinking about it, but, in the beginning, most of the people I talked to at HBO said, that's not such a great idea,
Right.
There's comedy all over the dial. HBO was doing their comedy specials and really making a name for themselves. There was A&E at the Improv. I mean, there was comedy on the dial. There's no question about it. I said, yeah, but this would be different. This would be like a place for comedy. This would be like a celebration of comedy, beyond all the time, and people always would know it was there, and maybe the comedians would come, and maybe we'd get some new and interesting things going. And they said, no, bad idea. So that was the end of that. No, actually, it took some time. It took me a while to convince HBO that it would be a good idea.
And I cheat sheeted a little bit onto your bio, and it talked about how you were kind of a pioneer at HBO in comedy and Comedy Central, and how they had two very different corporate models and backgrounds, and you had to find a way to bridge those two.
Well, that's it. I mean, actually, when we merged, there were only a few people who came over from each side, and I was one of them. And they gave us a new boss. They hired a president from somewhere else completely, who didn't have a background in comedy. He knew television, but he didn't have a background in comedy. So we had to put these two completely different cultures together. And remember, we were like this for 6 months.
Right.
Each channel saying, "No, we're the best. No, we're the best." And we came together, and I didn't know what to expect. And the other thing is, we didn't have a name. We had no name, and we couldn't use either Comedy Channel or Ha as the name. So the first thing we had to do was we had to come together. We had to make peace. We had to learn what each other had in terms of programming, and we had to give the thing a name. And that took about 2 or 3 months, and then we relaunched as Comedy Central. But in that time, we all sort of appreciated the same thing, which is everybody there wanted to make a comedy network. So it went nicely. I have to say it went smoothly. So it's as if we launched the channel twice, is what it was.
It was the Wild West of comedy for a few years there.
Yeah, well, the Wild West, in that nobody really knew what a 24-hour comedy channel should
Right.
look like at the
I
beginning.
still don't think they do.
Well, that's the beauty of comedy. You don't actually have to. But the thing is, we were feeling our way around, and we were hoping we'd get lucky, and we were hoping we'd come up with ideas. I think the management, and I don't have this on great authority, but there was a rumor that the management on both sides of the merger said thought that the whole merger wouldn't last a year. They just thought, we'll put them together and then everybody will go quietly home and maybe nobody will notice. But we surprised them. We did come up with some stuff.
Yeah, your idea for a 24-hour comedy channel was like one above the Salad Channel. They're hot on your heels.
Yeah,
we got
exactly.
we got Caesar. That's Monday. We got
yeah. Let me tell
fruit
you something.
salads on Tuesday.
Jim, you know what a lot of people don't realize, and obviously you don't, is the fact that 24 hours, filling 24 hours of a channel with anything, whether it's salad or it's comedy, takes a lot of doing.
Sure.
I mean, you get to day 3 and you go, holy mackerel, we're out of programming.
Right, but good programming too.
Yeah. So you realize as you're doing this, and it just gets, it's just you're constantly shoveling anything you can get into the maw for a while, because you got to put something on the air, and you don't want to repeat too much,
right.
Even though at the beginning not many people were watching, but again, we found our way, and that's the interesting thing. And we had some successes early on. We had a couple of I don't know if you remember Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, great story about MST 3000, which was kind of a cult hit for us.
Yeah.
That actually came in the mail from the guys in Minneapolis who were producing it. They were doing it just for fun at this at a Minneapolis station, and they saw that we were starting up the Comedy Channel, and they just mailed us a tape and said, "Hey, would you guys be interested in this?" So 12 minutes later, we had a contract, and the rest is history. So it was really, that was probably the first time I said to myself, this comedy network thing is going to work because people are going to start to find us, and people are going to start to pitch us. And it's a good thing they did, because we ran out of ideas pretty much the second day.
By lunchtime. Tell me the Whoopee Cushion show again. What was that?
Man, you would not believe the pitches we got. And to a certain extent, you wouldn't believe some of the stuff we ran. But you know what? I'm not going to diss our programming. We did our best. And so much of it was good. And so much of it was, breakthrough.
Yeah, you have to stay excited. Me and my sister produced the Boston Comedy Festival, and
sure.
It's funny because everybody who has an idea for a show in the Boston Comedy Festival, their show is always, I have a great idea for the show, and the show is always, the show is all about me. Every time.
I can't actually recall a comedian coming in and saying, I got a great idea for a show, and I know who to cast. And it wasn't them, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right, never. A me type. I'm looking for I got a me type.
Somebody, where can we get an Art Bell? Wait a second. I'm Art Bell. Just use me.
Great. No one's ever heard of him. Yeah, so you'll be discovering him. It's me.
Right. Yeah. Man, we had a lot of fun in those days listening to pitches and stuff. It was great.
Yeah, that's the fun part is you do, and I'll say, that Mystery Science Theater, they still do that as a theater show.
I know.
and it's still quite popular.
Yeah, you know what? My kids pointed out to me that that was going on a few years ago, and they were watching it like crazy, you know.
I
And
love the idea of that because I'm one of those annoying guys, and I think there's so many guys out there that watch movies, and there's that guilty pleasure of watching a kind of a horrible movie and just doing, the play by play of, making fun of it. We had David Zucker came. He was with Airplane, and great guy, and he kind of did that with Airplane. They made fun of this old movie about airplanes, and that became their
exactly.
script. That the running joke of how over seriously this movie took itself.
I know that was a great movie. That's
Yeah,
considered one of the top five comedy movies ever, by the way.
yeah.
And I watched it with my daughter the other day, and it holds up. It really does. It's really good.
Oh, it's
Anyway, yeah, you're right. I remember being a kid uh, and sitting around with my brother and my cousin and just ruining the movie for my aunt and uncle
of
as we were
course.
whatever we were watching. We're just chatting away like the same way. But the idea that the MST 3000 guys had, the idea to bring that to television. I will say this though, it was as if, and this is a little behind the scenes at Comedy Channel. It was as if the whole thing was preordained because we had a head writer named Eddie Gordetsky. He's still in the business. Do you know Eddie?
I don't.
Yeah, he writes sitcoms now. But anyway, he said we have to do some version of us watching television. Watch us watch television. And we were like, yeah, we got to do watch us watch television. Right. Cut to the things in the mail, right? And it's watch them watch movies. So that was a no-brainer. And
Awesome. And now, the title of your book, you're talking about the man who started comedy. Started with Comedy Central, and now and lost your sense of humor. I butchered the name of it. You tell me it. I apologize. I got
yeah,
some of the
that's
words
nice.
right.
That's nice. I'm trying to get a book publishing out there, and you're butchering the title. Is that fair?
That's
Um,
what we do.
it's called Constant Comedy: How I Started Comedy Central and Lost My Sense of Humor,
Okay.
and it's a memoir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to like in was it that you were just immersed in so much comedy that nothing? Because I'll tell you, when we get 300 or 400 submissions to get in the Boston Comedy Festival, and we watch every one of them. There's like a 10 days where you walk around with a blank stare in your eyes and nothing's funny anymore.
Yeah, yeah, that's true, but that's not why the
Okay.
title is what it is.
Okay.
The title is what it is because subtitle. Um, about 4 or 5 months into after the launch of the channel, and things were not going well, let me tell you. And there was a lot of talk about they're going to shut us down and all this kind of stuff. We got called in by the chairman of HBO, who staked his reputation on this thing, and he called us into his office, and he was not happy at all. And he just kind of glared at us for a few minutes, or it seemed like forever. And then he said, it took a comedy channel to make me lose my sense of humor.
Mm,
And nobody laughed because obviously it wasn't that funny. And then I looked around and I thought, yeah, I think we all lost our sense of humor, and that can't be good.
right.
But it came back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, eventually it does. Wow. I got to ask you this, and this is just, I rarely get to talk to people like yourself with so much experience and success in comedy. I think Dave Cohen's another one for sure. But the market has changed now. Now people are on the internet. I did a dry bar special. They just put it on YouTube like 7 days ago. It's already got 180,000 views.
I know.
And now as a festival, we shot a special last year. I don't even know where to go with it. I got 5 different or 8 different comedians on it. It's great. It's funny. Is now a good time to be going just on the internet, or do you think because of the COVID situation that places might be more open to look at something? Because we have no famous people. It's just funny.
Yeah, well, just funny is going to help. You know what? It's hard for me to say. I mean, I probably have the same kind of thoughts as you do about what's going to happen during COVID. You hope the industry stays together. You hope you realize that comedians can't perform live, and that's a shame. But certainly, the appetite for comedy doesn't go away
Right.
in any situation. Somebody asked me the other day if I thought America has lost its sense of humor, and I said, "Boy, I hope not." You know, when that happens, it's really, you know, things are really out the window. But I think there will be a continued appetite for comedy, and to a certain extent, we're lucky. This lucky. There's nothing lucky about the pandemic. But think about the pandemic before this kind of interaction, computer interaction, was
Right.
possible.
Right.
It would have been. I mean, talk about loneliness. You'd never
Yeah.
see anybody.
Yeah.
So the fact that you can make something and you can produce something and you could get it out there without even leaving your house. I used to say that in the old days. I said, you know, one of these days they're going to figure out how to make a channel out of your garage. And that's what they did. I mean, that's what's happening. You can make a channel in your garage now, and that's what people are doing. So, yeah, I think that'll
Got
continue.
one now.
Yeah, yeah, right.
We're doing it.
As we speak, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I think that it brings to mind something interesting. When we first started the Comedy Network, we were putting on a lot of comedians. And at first they were like, yeah, I'm on the Comedy Network, you know. And then they said, wait a second, they just repeated it. Wait a second, I saw it again. You know, and in the early days, we were repeating it. So they couldn't decide whether they were underexposed or overexposed. And it was really kind of a funny moment for the business
Right.
because, you know, some comedians thought that kind of overexposure would not be good. But
Right.
as you know, you put it on the internet, you get a zillion people, and you get a zillion people watching it several times.
You know what?
So
You know what I think
there's an
I'm
appetite.
finding is that comedians are doing other things besides their act. You know, like we're doing this, we're talking about comedy, but I'm not
Right,
putting my act out there. Like
right,
I have a lot of comedy clubs and stuff. They want to, and theaters. They want to do shows, and they want to live feed the comedians' acts out into the web and charge money for people to watch it. I'm like, well, comedians aren't going to want to do that. Not everybody.
No, certainly not. And you know as well as I do. Well, your act is a little bit different because you're interacting with the audience as a great part of that. So it's pretty much improvised every time you go out there. Unless, and I don't know this. Do you have shills in the audience? Do you know all the guys you're
No,
talking?
no, I don't have that many
I'm
friends in the
kidding.
world.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But you know, comedians, especially comedians coming up, you know, they've got, you know, they're building an act. They get 5 minutes of material, 10 minutes of material, 15 minutes of material is a lot, and you know, they don't want to just put that out there and forever and then be done with it.
Yeah,
So it, you know, I can certainly see the point
yeah,
of not just saying, okay, great, we'll go wherever you want us to go.
yeah. People don't realize, you know, it's like I remember doing this is just a couple years ago. I did a show, and I write. One of the secrets of being good at crowd work is writing all the time. You
Right.
just get into the knack of putting together something funny about everything all the time, you know. So,
Right. Right.
but I had a guy, a good friend of mine, came to the show, and he's like, I had a pretty good set, and he didn't say anything, and he said, "Well, you did that one joke before. I saw you do it," and I was like, "Really?"
Busted. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's better than stealing material, right?
Well, yeah, there's that too. That's yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So, yeah. Listen, you know, do I know where the business is going to go? I hope it just, you know, kind of makes a comeback. You know,
Yeah,
gets back to what it was. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit different. Everything is.
sure.
So we'll have to see.
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
Cool. Well, now, so where do people get a hold of all your social media and find you? Because I found you through LinkedIn, actually.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm on LinkedIn. Certainly on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook um, as Art Bell Author. That's my Facebook page. I have a website which is Art Bell Writer, where I post some blog stuff. I don't know if you took a look at that. I post some stuff on there
Yeah,
on a regular basis.
great.
And I'm on Instagram, although I have a tough time figuring that one out. I'm pretty new to social media, I have to say.
Yeah,
That's a big admission I'm making. So you know, I'm just learning how to do all this, and
right.
Instagram's the one that, you know, for me is been a little tougher to figure out. But I mean, yeah, I know you put pictures up, but just sort of,
Yeah,
you know,
I think all of us have one thing that is, you know, a result of this thing is we're all in our basements learning about social media because we got plenty of time to do it. And I'll say for you or for anyone out there, if you go to YouTube and you say, how do you get better, you know, better or more followers on Instagram? There's a million people with ideas for that. Or, you know, I'm Instagram's my new thing too.
yeah, really,
But years ago, I started with Twitter. I had Barbara Holiday. She owns the Comedy Club Flappers out in
Uh-huh.
Burbank,
Uh-huh.
and she did when you do a comedy festival, you have all these classes, and the comedians, because they're dummies, don't go to the classes. Like if you came to our festival, we'd love to have you do a seminar where they could meet and learn from all your experience. You're a guy who's produced how many shows, written for shows. You have this, and you're talking to people who want to do all those things you've already done, but they don't come to your free seminar. They want to meet you after the show when everybody's drunk or whatever, and be
Yeah.
cool. And it's like, so this was an example of her talking about social media. So I went there. There's 12 other comedians, and she told me at that time, told the class, if you will, there's 12 people in a theater that holds 200. She says, if you don't think that the people from television are looking at your social media, you're crazy. If you don't think the people that book Conan are going to go and see how many Twitter followers you have, you're mistaken.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, when I wrote the book, the first thing people would ask me when I was, looking for a publisher and everything was, how many Facebook followers do you have? What's your platform? So it's really important for everybody these days,
Yeah.
from your grandmother down to your 2-year-old to have a big Facebook presence and Instagram and LinkedIn and all the rest. It's just an accepted part of the way the world's doing business now.
All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Do you have any parting wisdom for comedians that are trying to get in the game? And
No, I don't actually, but I do have some parting wisdom for people who want to read my book, and that
okay,
is that it's available for pre-order on Amazon. So just look me up on Amazon, and you can pre-order. It's going to be published in September.
okay,
So yeah, so I hope people get interested and take a look.
I'll buy one.
Okay, I'm counting on it.
Already from this podcast, your sales.
That's heartening. That's heartening.
Yeah. Well, Art Bell. Thank you so much for doing this podcast. I really appreciate it, man. It's
No, thank you.
really,
I really
a cool guy to have on, and hope we can have you back sometime, maybe after you publish it or your next book or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad
All
to
right.
do it.
And
Nice to see you, Jim.
this is the Big Comedy Podcast. I'm Jim McHugh, and I'm on everything at Big Jim McHugh for Twitter, and just Jim McHugh on Facebook. And thank you so much for listening and watching. And Art, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.